A few days ago, Ollie Gunns, a well-known British contractor and machinery YouTuber, uploaded a video to his YouTube channel that struck a chord within the plant sector. Titled, "I really didn't want to have to say this," the video was a candid, slightly heartbroken critique of his brand new JCB backhoe loader. Ollie's machine, affectionately named Millie, is only 6 months old, yet it's already suffering from flaking paint, bubbling metal, a rusting stainless steel exhaust, and a leaking cab. What made Ollie's video so compelling wasn't just his own frustration, but the avalanche of responses it triggered. Within 48 hours, his social media was flooded with messages from fellow contractors sending photos of identical issues on their own near-new machines originating from JCB, Caterpillar, Kubota, Volvo, and beyond. It forces a deeply uncomfortable question that many in the industry have been whispering for years. Are construction machines actually getting worse? And to answer that, we need to look past the shiny brochures. We live in an era obsessed with carbon footprints, yet environmental policy currently suffers from severe tunnel vision. For the past 2 decades, international regulations have judged the environmental impact of heavy machinery through a very, very narrow lens, focusing purely on what comes out of the exhaust pipe. That relentless focus has brought us stage 5 engines, diesel particulate filters, and frustrating AdBlue systems. And mechanically, those systems are triumphs of clean engineering. But true environmental stewardship relies on longevity. Manufacturing a 10-ton piece of heavy plant requires an immense amount of energy, raw materials, global shipping, and carbon expenditure. If a machine is built poorly or is so frustratingly unreliable that it becomes a disposable liability after 4 or 5 years, the environmental cost of manufacturing its replacement completely obliterates the minor emission savings achieved at the tailpipe. By forcing manufacturers to spend billions of pounds in research and development purely on emissions compliance, legislation may have inadvertently incentivized them to cut corners elsewhere. Take the issue of modern paintwork, which Ollie highlighted as a major grievance. Anyone who spent time around old iron knows that a British or a Japanese excavator built in the 1980s or 1990s could sit quite happily in a damp hedgerow for a decade. And while the cab might eventually rot away, the thick, heavy chassis paint would remain stubbornly intact. Today, machines that have never seen a saltwater coast are showing blooming rust patches before their first annual service. And that issue stems from environmental legislation banning the very chemicals that made old paint so durable, rather than the factory workers forgetting their trade. Strict regulations on volatile organic compounds forced heavy industry away from tough, solvent-based paints and towards eco-friendly, waterborne alternatives. While those modern coatings are undeniably better for the health of factory workers and the local atmosphere, they possess fundamentally inferior adhesion properties. They're far less forgiving of sharp metal edges, laser-cut scales, or minor surface imperfections during assembly. And the result is a bitter irony. In our quest to safeguard the planet by using eco-friendly paint, we're producing machines that degrade faster, accelerating the rate at which they must be scrapped and replaced. Now, Ollie compared his JCB to a Range Rover. For that level of capital investment, you expect components that feel robust. Instead, owner-operators are increasingly reporting details that feel distinctly value-engineered. Value engineering is that corporate euphemism for stripping out cost of a product without making its disappearance immediately obvious. When manufacturers have to absorb the massive financial burden of developing advanced electronic architectures and super clean engines, they look to recoup those margins elsewhere. And that brings us to the more cynical edge of this argument. Is this obsolescence by design? If a manufacturer builds an excavator that lasts 25 years with basic maintenance, they will only sell you one machine once a generation. But if they build a machine filled with delicate electronics and fragile cosmetic coatings that deteriorate rapidly, they successfully alter the consumer relationship. When a machine becomes too complex or too shabby to maintain outside of a manufacturer's warranty, the owner is nudged to trade it in for a new model. It keeps the factory production lines moving and ensures a constant cycle of machine renewal, all under the guise of upgrading to the latest, cleanest technology. But to write a completely one-sided critique of modern manufacturing would ignore a massive variable that didn't exist 20 years ago: the social media echo chamber. It's entirely possible that machinery in the past suffered from just as many teething problems, oil leaks and paint failures as they do today. The difference is that 30, 40 years ago, if a contractor bought a dud, that frustration remained isolated. It was shared with the local dealer, grumbled about over a pint at the pub, or discussed with a neighbour over a fence. Today, social media acts as a colossal amplifier of grievance. When a prominent creator uploads a video showing a rust spot, it triggers an immediate digital pylon. Content algorithms thrive on negativity and outrage. They don't reward videos titled, "My excavator started and worked perfectly for the 4,000th consecutive hour." And because users are fed a steady diet of high-definition failures, mechanical breakdowns and warranty disputes, it triggers a cognitive bias. We see failures so frequently on our feeds that we assume they must be universal. A minor cosmetic issue on a specific batch of steel can instantly be amplified into an online narrative that an entire brand is falling apart. At first glance, statistics suggest that equipment is not as reliable as it once was. According to a Warranty Week report, warranty costs and claims within the heavy equipment sector are at an all-time high. In 2024, the top 55 global heavy equipment manufacturers paid an estimated $6.15 billion in warranty claims, which represents an 11% increase from the previous year. However, those same sources specifically note that these record-breaking warranty costs are not driven by rampant product failures or major recalls. Instead, the historic highs are attributed to economic and market forces, including increasing costs for parts and labour, alongside increased sales volumes. Total warranty claims naturally rise as global sales volumes increase, simply because there's more equipment in the market to cover. In fact, contrary to popular opinion, while total warranty costs are at historic highs, the actual rate of product failures is not. Machine failures are actually falling. There is, however, a very real structural shift in who these machines are being built for. The machinery market is increasingly split between the massive plant hire conglomerates buying 500 units a year and the smaller independent firm buying one. To a massive fleet manager, a machine is a depreciating asset on a spreadsheet, destined to be run hard for 36 months and then sold at auction. They don't care if the exhaust discolors or if the paint flakes, because the machine will be gone before it becomes a serious headache. But to the smaller firm, that machine isn't just a tool. It's their livelihood, their professional reputation, and an enormous personal financial risk. If the stats are to be believed, modern construction machinery is not demonstrably worse than its ancestors. In terms of safety, operator comfort, efficiency, and precision, it is in fact light years ahead. So why are we all left with the feeling that machines have actually got worse?